welcome everybody to this webinar that we think is timely and hope it will be useful. Today, we will be navigating the artificial intelligence landscape and looking at perspectives from national academies. Indeed, AI technologies are increasingly used, are increasingly present in our lives, from healthcare, education, governance, industry, the whole discussion and development towards sustainability transition, the green and digital transition. So it is crucial for the scientific leadership that belongs to our national academies of science, medicine, and engineering to both understand and actively shape the trajectory of AI development and utilization. And in these trajectories, there are of course, a lot of opportunities for welfare, supporting and increasing transformative change towards a world that we want to see, a world that will reflect the implementation of UN Agenda 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the targets within these goals that are a very holistic, integrated, implementable framework for our survival on this planet, bringing together the nature, economy, and society. At the same time, there are many, many challenges including ethical concerns, privacy issues, and the need for robust regulatory frameworks. So we believe that national academies are uniquely positioned to address these challenges because our authoritative standing, multidisciplinary experience, and commitment to scientific integrity. I'm a professor in economics and econometrics that I've spent the last 30 years of my life developing pioneering innovative systems for the sustainable interaction between nature, economy, and society. I'm a trustee of the World Academy of Art and Science and elected fellow in a few other academies, European and global. I am really honored to moderate this webinar that has been organized by the InterAcademy Partnership, and Moses has done most of the work for this, and we thank him deeply, and the World Academy of Art and Sciences. The World Academy of Art and Sciences, I'm sure the president of the World Academy will have an introduction to this academy in his welcoming introductory results to this webinar. But let me quickly say that it was founded in 1960 by Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein and Bernard Russell. And it is important that this is an academy that brings together intellectual leadership for solving world problems. So it's a forum for reflective scientists, artists, and scholars dedicated to addressing the pressing challenges confronting humanity today. And it is independent of political boundaries or limits, and it's a forum which tries to be a force for good, and I'm honored to be part of it. The InterAcademy Partnership is a global network, a very powerful global network of 150 academies of science, engineering, and medicine, with 4 regional networks in Africa, the Americas, Asia, Oceania, and of course, Europe. And tries to mobilize and does an excellent job in mobilizing regional and national expertise on wide-ranging issues of global importance. And of course, AI is one of them. We have a very interesting line of eminent speakers today. First, we have the President and Chief Executive Officer of the World Academy, Gary Jacobs, who, besides his position at the World Academy, he is also chairman of the board and chief executive officer of the World University Consortium and president and director of the Social Science Research at the Mothers Service Society, India. He has many other distinguished positions and awards, and you can find details of his CV in the concept note of the webinar. We will also post them in the chat. Our next speaker is again from the World Academy of Art and Sciences. He's a fellow trustee, Jerome Glenn, founder, president of the Millennium Project. He co-founded and directs the Millennium Project, and it's basically a project that developed a global participatory think tank which produces the State of the Future reports for the last 20 years. Again, more details about Jerome will be posted in the chat. The next speaker is Ricardo Paeza-Yays from the Chile Academy of Sciences and Chile Academy of Engineering. He is the Director of Research of the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence and a professor and director of research at the Institute for Experimental Artificial Intelligence at Northwestern University. Finally, Susan Veldsman, who is the director of a scholarly publication program of the Academy of Science of South Africa, has been the director of the scholarship publication units at the Academy of Sciences in South Africa since 2009. And throughout her career, she's done amazing work at an international level in trying to promote library and information services for open science, open access of scientific outcomes, results. As you know, open access of information, open science is a very crucial element in the development of AI. Again, more information for each participant will be posted in the chat. I don't want to take up more of your time, and I kindly ask Gary Jacobs, the President and Chief Executive Officer of the World Academy of Art and Science, to come in for his introductory comments. Gary, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Phoebe, very much. My thanks to InterAcademy Partnership for organizing this meeting with us, and Moses for all your support in making it happen. Greetings to all the participants, and I see many friends in the audience, including Lord Etheridge, one of our longtime senior fellows. And I'm mentioning Lloyd particularly because when I woke up this morning, I had an email from Lloyd in which he had asked not ChatGPT, but Claude AI, a prompt question on what is the role or relevance of AI to research in science academies. And I thought that Claude's response was so good, so comprehensive, that in giving an introduction, I certainly shouldn't do that, because you would guess that I have consulted AI for the answers. So I'd like to just touch on a few areas which I think are extremely important, and maybe Claude didn't cover all of them. And first, I'd like to start with a brief mention about the World Academy. Phoebe already gave an introduction, but in mentioning Oppenheimer and Einstein and all, but it has another relevance to our work here and this webinar on AI, because the origins of the Academy were really the development of nuclear weapons and those who were intimately involved in it, and the challenges they faced in seeing something that they thought would be saving humanity, and actually for the last 75 years has been hanging over our heads, the genie out of the box. And that ambivalence about an unlimited source of power and also an unlimited potential threat. That ambiguity comes back to us in certain respects with the emergence of AI some 75 years later. And you'll be hearing, I'm sure, from Jerome Glenn, who's been an expert in focusing on the potential threats of AI and generative AI and AGI as it emerges. But I'm not going to talk about that side, but I just wanted to say I think this is one of the most significant events in the post-war period, both as something we need to figure out how to handle, but equally so, something of unlimited potential for humanity if we can find the right way to handle it. And I think that's one of the themes that we need to be considering. In the 21st century now, AI offers us an unlimited horizon for enhancing our knowledge, the development of new discoveries, their application and potential focus and benefits to humanity. As Phoebe briefly mentioned, the Academy, we are a global academy with members all over the world, but our focus in everything is on how to address global challenges, collective challenges, and opportunities for the future of humanity. And I'd like to talk from that perspective about the relevance, I think, of this discovery and this topic very briefly. The kind of work we have, scientists in covering virtually all fields, not just of science and the social sciences and the humanities, and also business and diplomacy in the UN system and elsewhere. So we cover a broad area, but I think what we're going to talk about on AI is relevant to virtually all the fields in which our members are engaged. I just want to mention a couple of them to illustrate what that potential is. One of our research centers, called Force for Good, based in UK, is working on original research on how we can implement the Sustainable Development Goals at a time which I'm sure many of you are aware we run into difficulty in finding out how to finance them and how to get them implemented anywhere near the target of 2030, which is what was agreed on in 2015. And that research project depends to a significant extent on the use of AI to identify opportunities and strategies which have not been implemented so far. And in the work that they're beginning with the UN, the UN says this research seems to be presenting solutions that we really need, solutions which relied on AI as a significant player and contribution for original work in the field. At the same time, we have a major emphasis on education, the development of education. We started this World University Consortium, which Phoebe mentioned, with a goal of how to create a global system of higher education that would be available to everyone and affordable to everyone, offering world-class solutions, knowledge, and personalized, individualized, customized, self-paced learning. And it's only with the advent of AI that this has really become a possibility that in the next few years we could meet this. We have a huge gap, about 300 million college-age students who want to seek college education but cannot do so because of either the cost or the lack of facilities. So, and that of course is directly related to research. What type of education we will be giving them, and how do we keep pace with such a rapid change and expansion of knowledge? We also work with policymakers at InterAcademy, at the Interparliamentary Union, 170 plus parliaments of the world, on how to translate policies, how to translate knowledge into policy, a big challenge with the speed with which change is taking place, and particularly in the field of AI. How will the policymakers manage the challenges and opportunities from AI? And I'd just like to close with a couple of I think very important observations and relevant for us. And one is that AI, I believe, offers another opportunity, a bigger opportunity. There's been a lot of coverage, of course, of the threats that AI may pose to our jobs and future work and may replace us. But I think I'd like to focus on something else. I think AI has the opportunity to help us become better thinkers and with greater knowledge than we've had before. Many have quoted Einstein's famous quote that you can't solve the problems with the same thinking by which they were created. And I think that AI has a potential for helping us create that type of thinking that we need, which we haven't been able to do largely because the volume of knowledge is so great and the structures we have divided by discipline, where there's so much knowledge and expertise in each specialized area that it's very, very difficult for the specialized areas to link together and see the big picture and how everything is interacting with everything else. And this is a field of great importance to the Academy because we see that virtually all of the challenges we face are interconnected. All of the disciplines are interconnected, but our theory and our analysis and our policies and implementation tend to be fragmented in disciplinary ways, either at the level of theory or the level of education and research, or at the level of implementation and policy making. And so we're hoping that AI can really help us for a breakthrough at a time when humanity really needs it. And just to go a little further than that, most of our science, naturally in the natural sciences, but even in the social sciences, our science is geared up to handle the objective reality that we can measure and quantify and process in data. And our analytic tools for doing that are very powerful in economics and in many other areas. But today we're facing that major issues before us are not quantitative and not objective, but they depend on the attitudes and aspirations and fears and sense of insecurity of people. And it's very difficult for the social sciences to grapple with those and integrate them into our strategies. And I think that's a big opportunity that AI is opening up. So I wanted to stress that apart from doing the things we do better and faster, and I think that we'll be hearing from many of them from the other academies, believe we'll be able to do some things that we haven't been able to do that directly impact on addressing global challenges. Thank you, and looking forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Gary. Indeed, it is a big opportunity for using AI in the most constructive way in order to allow integration, in order to make explicit the synergies and need for integrated, holistic understanding of problems and develop solutions that are based on this integrated understanding. Bringing together the different systems that are relevant, the climate, the land use, the marine use, the transport system, the energy system, the health system, the socioeconomic system, bringing together all these systems that make up our economy and society, and managing them in a way that it's beneficial for human welfare is a huge challenge. We definitely need tools like AI. We need to grab the opportunity, but there are also huge challenges. And a person that is very knowledgeable and also a doer, I call him, in the field is Jerome Glenn, a fellow trustee of World Academy of Arts and Sciences and founder president of the Millennium Project. Jerome, the floor is yours to bring in your expertise and experience and thought leadership into navigating the way to manage AI as a force for good.
Thank you very much. Unless Gary gave me a promotion I didn't know about, I'm not a trustee. I'm just a regular fellow. But anyway.
You're not a trustee of the World Academy of Art and Science?
No, I'm not that trustworthy.
Ah.
Anyway, but
okay.
you can trust the rest of the stuff I talk about. I think that the conversation on AI, which I wrote about it actually, but 30 years ago in a book called Future Mind. So I've been tracking this stuff for a while, has become extremely confusing to people. And I think that the reason it's become very confusing to people is we use the word AI as a generic term, which it is, but they'll talk about different aspects of different kinds of AI as if it's the same thing. And that is not useful to the world conversation, especially when it comes to regulations and licensing and things like that. So the distinctions I would make, and of course, like any distinctions, there's always a little bit of gray area in between each one. But I would say one is narrow, second is general, and third is super. Narrow intelligence is the stuff that we're doing today. It has a single purpose. You tell it what to do. You're in charge. You may not like the answers, but you can then respond back to those, but you're still in charge. It has a focus, and hence the word narrow intelligence, narrow AI. The second is not here yet. As far as I know, it may be in the military that I don't know about, but it's not here yet. It's artificial general intelligence, lousy way of saying it, but that's the way it's become known, artificial general intelligence, or AGI. This is an AI system that is not simply a tool, as narrow is. It is more of an actor. It can rewrite its own code. If you give it a mission that it can't do, it can figure out what it ought to be able to do. And then what it can do then is to rewrite its code to be able to accomplish that mission. And some people will say, well, eventually it will become sentient or conscious or another species and so on. Well, maybe. And I'm not going to have an opinion on that. What I do have an opinion on is that artificial general intelligence will act as if it is conscious, as if it is sentient, as if it is a being. And it's useful to think of it that way, to my judgment. Now, artificial superintelligence is AGI beyond your control. It is, the analogy that I make is like children growing up. Narrow intelligence is like the little kid. You tell it when to eat, where to poop, all that sort of stuff, what to do, you're in charge. Teenager is like general. Yeah, you got some control, but it's not completely controlled. It's experimenting with blue hair and all kinds of other sorts of stuff that you didn't expect it to do. Superintelligence, good luck. You're no longer in charge. Now, the only chance we have, in my judgment, to influence how superintelligence evolves is how the transition goes from today to artificial general intelligence. This we can control. And this, the academies of science around the world should be its #1 issue today. Why? Because the management of this transition from narrow to general is the most complex, difficult challenge we've ever had. And I worked with Herman Kahn and others during the Cold War, and we thought that was complex and difficult. That's child's play, frankly, because the more you get into this, the more you'll realize it's really complex and really difficult to manage this stuff. So we've got, and now some people say, well, artificial general intelligence is not going to be there for a while. I know, but how long do you think it's going to take to put together regulatory systems worldwide in a coherent structure with the UN and the nation? It's going to take some years. And you also, if you've been following this, you'll notice that just 4 or 5 years ago, we thought that artificial general intelligence, 50-50 chance of like 2045 or so. Nobody's saying that now. It's now some people are saying like 2 to 3 to 5 years, certainly within this decade. Well, that's a lot faster, and the forecasts keep bringing closer and closer and closer. So the trend is faster evolution than before. So I think we should panic now when we have time to actually work on this thing, because once artificial general intelligence is created, it won't be one thing. It won't be one country. China's taken this on as a priority. The United States probably is as well. You've got other countries playing in the game. You've got different corporations around the world playing in the game. So there's going to be a bunch of artificial general intelligences of different stripes. And they will probably figure out how to communicate with each other. What are they going to talk about? You know, these humans are messing up the planet. Put a stop to that stuff. Now, I am not part of the doomsday crowd. My position is the following on this. Aligning all the values that UNESCO's talked about, the OECD's talked about, all the people, we've got a tremendous amount of job done on the values. I am not going to contribute. That's it. That's there. I'm very happy with that work. But how you take that and then turn that into software and an intelligence system and align these things that are predictable and don't go off into different directions. And some people will say, throw up their hands and say, forget it, we're doomed. I don't have that position. Jeffrey Hinton, one of the top guys in this game, and some others, I agree with him. It may be impossible, but we got to try. If you look back at the Cold War stuff, most people, and I would give talks in the 70s and 80s on this stuff, and I asked, like, you think World War III is going to happen? And most of the hands would go up, because it was, historians tell you, when two or more great powers confront each other, sooner or later they go to war and they use the weapons of the day. So it's inevitable. Well, it wasn't. It was thought by many people impossible, but we got to try. I have the same position on this. I think we should say this now. So where does the academies come in and all this sort of stuff? We've got to start to figure out how a licensing system will work. Each country should come up with a licensing system, and it's going to take several years to put this together. Now, I figure we got a deadline of 3 years, and that's the mental deadline I would throw out there when I talk to the U.S. Senate folks. So we should discuss this stuff. We should share with other countries back and forth. We should work with organizations like this. How can we have some coherence? Every country's going to have their own rule, but there ought to be some coherence among them, because it should be interoperable in some way. And there has to be, we just did a study, a 3-phase study, where we take 55 views or 55 top AGI folks, 22 questions, and we take all of that and we end up with what the regulations ought to be, and then we rate that and so forth. So there's about 40 regulations, and you can get this on our website later on. But the thing is that we've got to take it as a priority to say what ought to be the rules to be licensed for AGI, so that you can work on the lab, you can keep it, but don't touch it on the internet, just keep it offline, work on this, all that sort of stuff, that's fine. But then when you want to go and do something, then you've got to go through some procedure to get a license. That license should also be certified by a UN system. maybe the UN system is a multi-stakeholder, including businesses as well as some universities and government, a multi-stakeholder, and a hybrid organization. So it's part AI, narrow AIs doing specific tasks, and human interacting together. So that can certify each country's system. Anyway, that's probably enough rattling on for right now, and we can talk about details in a bit. But there's tremendous amount of work that's been done on this. What specific regulations, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and all that sort of thing. And you can get that from the Millennium Project website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerome. So I hear the urgent need for regulation. I also hear that there is a probability that we are going to be successful in regulating the advancement of AI. And I also hear that there is already background work on the structure of these regulations that need to be used as a basis for forming them, with the understanding that we need consistency across the globe, and that this might be something that UN leadership is needed in order to provide this consistency. Thank you very much. There are going to be a second round of introductory remarks. Let me now move on to our second panelist, Ricardo Baeza Yates from the Chilean Academy of Sciences and the Chilean Academy of Engineering, an expert member of Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence and a research director at the Institute of Experimental Artificial Intelligence at Northwestern University. Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Phoebe. Sorry that I need to correct. It's experiential, not experimental, and it's Northeastern, not Northwestern. So
sorry about that. Sorry.
I thought you wanted to fix it, but was twice. So yeah, but many people do the same mistake. So no problem. We need to be more known to don't have that problem. So I have sadly I have a clash with another keynote on these topics, because my main topic is responsible AI in 25 minutes. So I will basically take a bit longer to say everything I would like to say, and then sadly I will have to leave at the hour. So the first question, I think we just formed very recently an AI committee together with the Academy of Engineering in Chile, because many members belong to both academies, so it didn't make any sense to have separate committees. So at the same time, we were working in committees and realized that we were invited to two committees, so we said, let's have a larger committee. And in our first brainstorming meeting, I think we discussed three things that worry us as scientists and engineers, and I think will be the same that Claude will answer, or even any academy in the world. But basically, the first one is the impact of AI in education and science. And there are many topics here there. So how to use it, how to keep the ethics of, for example, your work, also how to keep the ownership of your science if you use it too much, and how to use it in science. So this is like a big set of topics. The second one, I'm sure this is also very common in many countries, is the impact of AI in the workforce and the local industry. So how AI will affect our country, in this case, Chile, and for example, how we need to reskill the people if we are losing jobs because of AI, how we can try to push for empowering people instead of replacing people on the companies that have new ideas on AI, which will be the simple solution, try to increase productivity instead of trying to decrease the cost of, for example, your business. I think growth is better than cost reduction, but some people don't see it that way. And then, of course, and this has been mentioned, the regulation on the use of AI, very important on the use of AI. Here I have several problems. I have written about that in the past. Sadly, Latin America and probably many other places in the world will copy the European regulation, which in this case is not as good as the data protection one that many countries copy, GDPR. because of three problems. I want just to mention briefly the three problems. The first one is that we shouldn't regulate the use of technology. This is like don't hit a person with a hammer, and the right regulation will be don't hit a person, period. I don't care how you do it. But now we are using one technology. In the future, maybe we'll need to use quantum computing, blockchain, everything new that we'll invent. And this will be a very difficult path, because not only we have different geographies that don't agree, but we need to be coherent among all these regulations of the use.
Sorry,
someone
can
muted?
you, yes, please unmute yourself, sorry. We
yes,
can
I don't
hear
know.
you now. We can hear you now.
So I was mentioning the problems with the European regulations. So the first one is that we shouldn't regulate the use of technology. We should regulate the problem where we are using AI. The second one is that sadly we are only regulating AI, but we should regulate any software. So that's why I'm co-author of the new principles of the ACM, the largest computer science association in the world, on the responsible algorithmics systems. So basically, it should be any algorithm, not only AI, because otherwise we have a loophole to AI. And the last problem is more conceptual, is that we are again inventing categories that don't exist. We have risk categories. A risk is a continuous variable and will be very hard to measure, and then also will be very hard to enforce and very hard to find which are the right boundaries, because there are no boundaries in risk. It's a continuous variable. So this is my problem with the regulation. Now, other thing that academies can do is to study key applications and how they are used in their country. There I have a very recent experience in the National Academy of Sciences of the US, where I live, because I was one of the contributors to the recent report on face recognition technology, which has a lot of ethical issues around the world, especially in police enforcement. Now, to get to the last part, Jerome says, panic now. Well, can we be in charge? I think we have to be in charge all the time. I mean, if we are not in charge, it's our fault. We will get to a possible doom. I don't believe in that, but if we are not in charge, that's the problem. Because in the meantime, we're destroying our planet, so we are not very smart. Maybe that's why I love the movie Arrival, because Arrival shows that they are a smart aliens that maybe don't want to talk to us because we are not that good. We can do awareness on the real threats. So I think the real threat is not AGI. AGI will not happen in 5 years, not even in 10 years. We need to put a lot of other things like reasoning, common sense, knowledge in the current AI systems. But we have a disinformation problem. So this year, we have more than 70 countries having elections. And we already saw what can happen in India. We will see it in the US. We will see it in other 70 countries. It's the time that we have more people voting on Earth, and we are not really handling the problem. Predictive AI, a lot of discrimination already. In many cases, invisible. We cannot see what is the problem. And we will find the problem only when we see the impact. The best case is a city in the Netherlands that at the end caused the government to quit in January 2021. So it is the worst case of a bad system affecting more than 100,000 people and basically have a major political disruption in a country. So we're not talking about science fiction. We're talking about things that happened a few years ago. And the last one is mental health. So as Jaron Lanier said last March 2023, the AI will not destroy us, will get us insane. 5 days later, a person in Brussels committed suicide after talking to a chatbot for 6 weeks. Many people don't know this. Yeah, it's the first case. But if all people start thinking that these technologies are human and you can talk to them and you can put names to them and you can use human verbs to them, well, this thing will continue. We had the movie Hair. That was not as bad because the outcome was not the same as in Belgium. But more people is talking to their relatives, more people is doing things that they shouldn't do, and that will affect the mental health of many, many people. And the last topic I would like to say that maybe science can help is that today we're evaluating AI in completely wrong way. We are basically evaluating success. what is the problem? Imagine you go to an elevator and the elevator says it works 99% of the time. I will not take it. If the elevator says doesn't work 1% of the time, and when doesn't work it stops, I will take it because I'm safe. So this is the difference between engineering and science and alchemy. Today, there's too much alchemy, and people is using these things without understanding what they do and without understanding their output. And this is the problem mainly with generative AI. So these are the real threats that we need to make people aware. Like, this is not human intelligence, it's computational intelligence. It doesn't understand anything of what outputs, but it's very useful for some things and it's very dangerous for others. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the note of warning. There is a question in the chat that maybe I will put it to you because you have your keynote and we do understand that you need to leave us quite soon. It says we've been slow in regulating social media platforms, which also use AI. How then we will be able to regulate more complex AI systems? And from what I hear, the questions that is constantly in my head, regulation is one aspect of the story. At least an economist will always bring this into the discussion. Regulation is one aspect of the story. The other aspect of the story is education, upskilling and reskilling in order to have knowledgeable users. And this cannot only be achieved by regulation, it needs a serious investment in true education of the people in order to have the skills to understand how best to use this technology, what this technology is about. So there is also a moral, and not just moral, an efficiency argument that we need to invest in educating people in the way they use a technology that is intruding and being diffused across the world in all aspects of our lives, a technology that is both an opportunity but also a risk. And then in order to go back to regulation, in order to regulate efficiently, you need to be able to identify and estimate the risks with some accuracy. And here we're not just facing risk, we are also facing ambiguity. We don't know the probabilities of the different dangers that are involved in AI, or if we do, they are not known to me or commonplace. So what do you think would be a holistic approach to both regulating top-down, but also incentivizing the right use through education, upskilling, and reskilling of this very important technology?
First, I should say I'm not a policy person, so I will answer as my experience as computer scientist and data scientist. But it's a very, the question is very good because we have always been late. So for example, we still don't have a regulation for atomic bombs. For example, we have a kind of a agreement, but still anyone can use it anytime if they want to. There's no prohibition like for example, chemical weapons where we have a prohibition. So we have been slow in our history, in recent history, and we are even slower now because technology is advancing much faster. So this is one of the problems. So I don't think this problem, which is a human problem, we will solve it. Remember, the EU regulation was proposed 2021, so 3 years ago. In the way appear generative AI, they had to fix it. Even in the last version approved, they had to fix the last version because they were improving the right thing. So a lot of human errors on the way. We took 3 years, and we have something. I think it's better something bad than nothing. So I agree on that, but we need to fix it because the way that we have it today is not good. But we can do other things. So for example, medicine could be science where we have similar problems, but we don't. Why? Because we have a very strong code of ethics. Maybe AI needs a very strong code of ethics, the one that starts at high schools and then is in the first year, and then every course in engineering and science, you have one example of how to use ethics, because ethics depends on the context, depends on the use, depends on the harm, and depends on benefits. So this will be one important thing, like we have an ethics code that in the case of medicine comes from even before Christ. We can have one today, and we can do that fast. ACM has a very good code of ethics, IEEE also, and so on. We need to enforce it and apply it and adopt it and embrace it. This is one thing. And the second thing we need, like maybe Jerome mentions licenses. Well, for example, China is already using licenses for every language model since last year. That was the first large regulation in place. It's not very scalable, and you need maybe to do lobbying to get your license approved very fast, and some people have done that going to China. But maybe we can do things that are simpler, right? For example, if you use the ACM principles, maybe you can force to have a risk impact assessment when you have the risk of impacting either society or the environment. And this is not so difficult to do. At least you say, I did it and I found no issues. And then maybe other people can redo it and say, well, you didn't thought about this and about this and about this. So we need more transparency in the process. We need to start with responsible AI at the beginning when you have an idea, and not at the end when you need to do an audit or go to court to pay a fine. So I think we have the tools, but we need to basically use them. And that's the problem. Today, we are not using them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your response. And I love the comment that we need to start as early on as possible in the education system for the ethical code of using AI. And of course, not just to STEM students, but all students, because even social sciences use lots of AI. Policy sciences use a lot of AI. Stakeholder engagement sciences use a lot of AI. Thank you so much for being with us. I wish you every success and impact in your keynote afterwards. And we are gonna make available the recording of this webinar, and also we will try to use this webinar as the beginning of some initiative, some opinion that can be supported by the academies that are part of IAP, the InterAcademy Partnership. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is a person who is leading editorial structures in the scholarly publication program at the Academy of Science of South Africa. Susan Veldsman has been a director of the scholarly publications unit of this academy, and she, throughout her career, she has held posts as an information librarian at various higher education libraries in South Africa, and also as director, assistant director of client services, library services at the University of Johannesburg, and also at the South African National Library and Information Consortium. So she's a person that is involved in open access and setting up institutional repositories. She's a person that is involved in the open science movement. This is a very important movement for our scientists in order to have the capacity to communicate with all other stakeholders that might use our science, but also in order to communicate between us, in order to share data, models, outcomes, and so on. So I would like to welcome you in our panel, Susan, and it would be really nice if you can elaborate on artificial intelligence and associate tools and policies in editorial decision making. Susan, the floor is yours. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, certainly we are going to switch a little bit of gears now in terms of the themes that's already starting to emerge from the previous two speakers, like regulation, data protection, skills, training, etc. I think I would like to put a little bit of a twist to my sort of presentation, and not just only focus on scholarly publishing and the output, etc., and what does it actually mean for editors specifically. I also would like to ask the question, especially in terms of academies, how do we participate and how do we mobilize experts in this field? Because I think that's very important. Academies of sciences are very differently structured across the globe. There's not a one size fits all. We all have, or we each have our own way of how we've structured our academies. But still, I think the one universal sort of power that academies have is the one of participation and of mobilizing and igniting conversations around very important issues. Our two previous speakers have already spoken about the important issues still starting to emerge, and sort of the problems that it poses to the world out there, especially if we think about the fourth industrial revolution, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, etc. So whose is this, and who should be actually governing and looking at this particular field? It is almost borderless, so to speak. So I'm speaking with a cap on of the Academy of Sciences as such, and looking at what did we do to start generating and to start conversations around artificial intelligence. We must remember November 2022, the large language models actually started to emerge, and literally overnight they presented themselves, etc. And that caused quite a lot of alarm and concern amongst editors, because now suddenly the large language models are really bringing about actually quite a lot of functionality, etc., like breaking down language barriers if we look at sort of leveling the playing ground and equity, etc. And also it's driving innovations to include researchers creating personalized LLMs to tailor to the scientific domains. Also, the automated repetitive writing tasks, such as literature reviews, etc., is suddenly being taken over by sort of the broadly branded machines, so to speak. So that was really sort of creating quite a scene for artificial intelligence, if we brand it very broadly in the world out there. And that was quite concerning, especially for editors, because how do you feel about an AI or a ChatGPT actually writing the text or doing summaries, etc. So I think the world and editors at large really had to join forces and had to come up with some guidelines for not only editors, but for peer reviewers, and as well as for researchers in the use of ChatGPT, for instance, when constructing text for research output, etc. I think that field is starting to stabilize more, and I think that the editors are getting a far better grip, for the moment at least, on editorial processes and tools in assisting them in sort of gauging to what extent artificial intelligence is actually being utilized. But then, as said, it is very important then also is then how do we participate and how do we mobilize the knowledge that's embedded into the membership of our academies research experts. And that is very important. And as we decided then to have a debate series where we're actually featuring global experts on AI, we are actually quite amazed that there are pockets of interest groups where these researchers actually do talk. But I think the Academy has the ability to actually also assist, to advise in terms of the policy making, and then also through science engagement is to have these debate series and then to elevate sort of the talks around it and to make the experts amongst each other also aware of what is actually happening and what are these research participants actually involved in, to ensure that when we are called upon is to give sound policy advice to policymakers as such. It was very interesting when we actually constructed this different debate series. There's actually 4 of them eventually. And the first topic we had is that we had a debate around to explore the opposing perspectives on the AI's trajectory, sort of the cautionary stance that fears is unchecked growth and its potential harm, and then of course the optimistic view that celebrates its achievements and future promise. I think that's the one thing that we wanted to raise awareness about is how do we take the sting out of AI. I'd heard Jerome saying, but he's not one of the doomsday sort of club of people. And that is what we're trying to do, certainly, is to take sort of sting out of AI to see the different advantages that it could actually bring about. And then, of course, LLM stays actually quite a point of huge debate. And then we debated around this optimistic view of LLMs as a catalyst for scientific progress, with critical perspectives on their potential to dilute research quality and integrity. And I think that's another sort of theme coming forward in which academies should be involved in, is to raise awareness around these particular issues. And then, of course, also looking at AI, whether it's actually solving old mysteries or is it inspiring new questions? And I think that is also very important because in this debate then is the whole juxtapose the perspective that AI-driven science will primarily solve existing theoretical puzzles with a view that it will fundamentally transform the scientific inquiry process, inspiring entirely new questions and fields of study. And we need to raise this awareness also amongst our researchers and just the public in its entirety. As a fourth theme that we are looking at currently is sort of the gender bias in AI, specifically from an academy point of view, where gender equity and language barriers, etc., needs to be addressed and needs to be taken forward. So I think having that approach and sort of having a proactive approach will certainly assist to help academies and not to also participate internationally, nationally, and regionally, because much is happening on that level as well. And in terms of regulating, when we talk about regulation, and I won't drill much deeper into that aspect, I'm quite concerned about regulation on the one hand side is how do we regulate this sphere, and how do we regulate it sensibly? And if we regulate it, what alignment can there be and what coherence can then speak to each other? And I think that will be a very important role for academies to play as well. And of course, then what we could also do, like I said, that our academy is very differently structured. We don't have research institutes coupled to the academy, but we have researchers, which is our main thrust of the Academy, is how do we mobilize them to play an important role, not only nationally, regionally, and internationally. And with that, I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your insightful comments. It's really important that we understand how open access and AI can go together into creating a safe space for research exchange, but also exchange between all other stakeholders of scientific data and results. For the second round of our conversation, I would like to do the following. Our main focus will be what we as academies can do in order to enhance the prospects of AI for the benefit of our human race. And I would ask the panelists to address this general question, but at the same time address the questions we have already received in the chat. And I am very thankful for people who are sending questions, because this is exactly what this webinar is about, to have an interactive session about our aspirations and worries, but also about the existing background for all that we do. So one question coming from Landing Jada says, what are the regulations protecting intellectual property right on source code, and what are the limitations of AI? Then we have another question by Rim Abu Asi, who asked, would we witness soon the normalizations of using AI as educational tool in essays and paper writings? And how much, what would be the percentage of human and the percentage of AI contribution in this educational use of AI? And why would you suggest those percentages? And then I also have another question, which says, these are basically the two questions, but we also have in the chat a lot of very interesting information that I invite all of you to have a look at. First of all, our panelist, Ricardo, has shared a document with many of his insights, the insights that he shared during his intervention. And also Jerome has shared phase 1 and 2 of AGI research to be made available at State of the Future 20.0 that will be released 15th of September. So these are interesting elements that we can look into. I'm just sharing the information so that I'm sure that each and every one of you uses these background documents that are available in the chat. And we have also another question from Lawrence Ford, who says that Jerome used a great example of the three stages of AI and AGI development when speaking of toddlers growing into adults. And just as kids grow up too fast, so will AGI. So my question is, how do we help people grasp the concept of exponential growth? And that's a very interesting question, a very relevant one, because the exponential growth is experienced not only with regards to this technology, but also with regards to many technologies in the in the current era. And I've seen a new question coming in again, and it's use of AI and social media crosses international boundaries. We have not yet negotiated the colonization of space, but we did manage to negotiate an Antarctic treaty. Could we use this as a model inspiration for negotiating ethics policy related to the use of AI? I want to invite each of the speakers to tackle any of these questions or a combination of them in their second intervention, that it would be great if it can be focused on what we can do as academies, what we can do now to intervene in order to streamline, in order to navigate the exponential growth of AI into something useful and safe. And can I start with you, Jerome?
Yep. I think that you could play an extremely, extremely important role in the following way. I've talked to 3 parliaments now, and who understand that they got to start working on the regulations for artificial general intelligence. But they're afraid to put anything on paper. They don't want to look foolish. And this is a big problem because nobody knows enough. And what we have to do is we have to start to share our ignorance and our knowledge together. And I think that, that's the nature of science anyway, exposing ignorance and knowledge together. I think it'd be great if the Academy could have each Academy, each member say, okay, and create a database, have we begun narrow intelligence regulations, yes or no? Or what's the status? Have we begun artificial general intelligence, yes or no? And what is the state of their work? And that can create a little peer group pressure around the world to get on and start to move on this. There is also the Interparliamentary Union that said they're going to help this happen. And yet I haven't seen them do a thing on it yet. So I would say that the most important thing that the Academy can do right now is get on the record, all the countries, where are you? So that we can start to see and start to share. There was a suggestion at the Interparliamentary Union to create a map that they decided not to do. And so you click on a country and you get, what's the status of that country? You click on another country, so you start to build a little peer group pressure to start to collaborate. And I can see a guy's just running and wanting to jump in and talk right now. He's waving in front of me.
Okay. So you are suggesting a mapping of what are the existing.
That would be the best, but I'm not.
Or what are the existing regulations?
Yeah, at least a simple database. Like a thing on the website. So you click on what is it? Having a map would be very cool. Because then the public starts to get more involved. Because then they can say, "Oh, my country is behind that country. Why? I want to contact the Academy of Science in my country and find out what's going on."
Yeah. We can do that, actually. It's not extremely challenging. It's a start, because you cannot develop anything. You cannot make progress unless you know where you are, right? And where you want to go.
Exactly. And the thing I would beg you, if you do this, have 2 sections, keep separate the narrow, like Ricardo was talking about narrow, not general. He thinks it's never going, it's way off in the future. Okay, fine. But you want to make that mistake? Anyway, so have separate stuff for narrow and for general, because how you regulate them is different. The analogy that I would make is IT, information technology, includes the fax machine and it includes the internet. But how you manage a fax machine and how you manage the internet is a lot different, but they're both IT. And we're making that confusion every day. And so please have two different sections so that if someone starts to say something, it's, oh, you're talking about narrow AI regulations. The European Union is narrow AI. China, narrow AI. All these things are narrow AI. They're not general. We don't have general yet at all.
Mm, mm. Indeed, indeed. That's very interesting, and it's totally doable. Susan, can I have your second round of comments with a particular direction to what to do, and maybe answering some of the questions that have been posted on the chat?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think what can academies do? I think there's also regional and other intergovernmental structures like the G20, which next year will be hosted by South Africa, for instance, and which numerous countries are involved in. And I think we should also make sure that it's placed on that agenda. I think the whole thread of AI has been carried through from India to Brazil in the two previous sort of governance structures of the G20. I think that's important, is that we also have our footprint there to keep the debate going, because I think that really also raises the profile in terms of regulation and what needs to be regulated, and where are those points that we should actually interface with each other. That is extremely important. Another structure which is also important is the BRICS one, which sort of unifies, Brasilia, Russia, India, China, etc., on those ones as well, to get that perspective and lens. And with the extended membership of the BRICS countries, I think that's certainly something coming through. And there's also a BRICS Academy organization. So I think through those academies within those countries, that is important. So I think to make use of those regional structures or other intergovernmental structures, I think that's very important. I'll just have a quick look at the chats and see if I can answer one of those questions. Yes, and the whole question about social media, that's highly problematic and very high on the agenda of discussions and disputes almost, in a sense, where there's not a lot of congruence as to what should actually should be happening there. Whether the Antarctic Treaty should be a basis of such policies, etc., maybe as a model. Well, I think one will have to probe just more in detail into that to actually make sort of an informed decision whether that is a good one to consider in compiling such regulations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you very much. Very useful, and indeed highlighting supporting, adding to the way forward. At this point, I would like to see if there are representatives or speakers from other academies that want to speak about what they are doing at the moment, about general and specific AI, and give us their aspirations and also their willingness to collaborate on an initiative to first map the landscape in terms at least of regulation, what is there. And if I am not too intruding, I would like to ask Darren, Samadra, Ains, who is from the International Science Council, a Center for Science Future, that has already published a report including 12 country case studies, a report titled, if I understand well, Preparing National Research Ecosystems for AI Strategies and Progress in 2024, and also the next steps and goals of this particular project. Can I ask you to unmute and give us a bit of background on this very useful information?
Yeah, hi Phoebe. Thanks so much. Unfortunately, my camera's not working today, as always. It has
Don't
to happen
worry.
on the day. Yeah, thanks for allowing me to come in here. I mean, it's a wonderful discussion. It was great to follow, through the different angles to what's happening, what we need to think about. And I think each of the speakers touched on very interesting topics and key points. And I think I just wanted to highlight here because we started talking about mobilizing experts, mobilizing different countries. And that's exactly how our project came about, actually, where we're bringing in experts from different countries and asking them to just give us exactly what's happening in the country, just to see what are the feasibilities, what is the priorities, and how they're really thinking, who they're engaging together within the country, the different, the roles of the universities, the institutions, the different stakeholders, citizen science, etc., and really trying to just grasp a landscape as much as possible of what's happening. So this is exactly as you highlighted in this first report that we published, where we're including 12 country case studies. And then we're expanding on this. So we'll be publishing a second report at the end of the year to include more country case studies, and then building on this project to kind of have more clarification papers. And this is kind of the link that I included, where there's more to the next steps of this project. And I'm happy to answer if there are any questions or if the time allows. Thanks again, Phoebe, for this time.
Phoebe, you're muted.
I knew it had to happen as well, the art of unmuting. So I see a comment here from Lloyd Etherger. Sorry. Thank you very much for the comment. Are you available to speak? Yes, unmute and speak and introduce what you wrote there, because I think it is also very useful and in the direction that the International Science Council is working. Please, the floor is yours. Lloyd?
Yes,
I have unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning. I'm not sure that the late night run that I did with Claude 3.5 was widely circulated, but if the staff or the people I got it to can do that and have mastered the technology for doing that, I think was very useful. And by the way, Claude 3.5, who I prompted with the call from the email for this meeting, Claude says, "Thank you for asking such an interesting and important question." So, and it offers to be available for further follow-ups from its databases. I did ask it to identify in 10 areas successful regulations of technologies informed by scientists and engineering. And I thought it's a very useful checklist of partial successes and even better successes that we actually can congratulate ourselves on in some areas. International airline safety, jet engine technology is an area of very high effectiveness for preventing airline accidents. It's not perfect yet, but it is an international regime informed by engineers and scientists and a great deal of well-organized political pressure that we can point to as an example of how scientists can work together with a very organized focus and produce a regime that does a useful regulation. My other thought on this is that we do have historical examples of technologies that have escaped think tanks and laboratories and now are escaped into the wild and can survive in the wild. As a political scientist, my favorite example is market capitalism, which is still now able to draw together profit-making opportunities and disruptive effects for good and ill around the world. But at the most severe level of environmental pollution, warns us, as Jared Glenn has done, that time is limited.
Gone, she goes.
What?
He leave you here alone.
Sorry?
Doesn't matter.
Oh,
I muted the person who was talking. Apologies, please continue.
oh, all right. So what we found is market externalities for the environmental destruction. And once it gets going, it starts to generate profit opportunities. We have decades and decades of struggle ahead. So the warnings that we are giving is time to move is now. And also to recognize that billions are now being invested with the idea of profits in many, many areas. And so that regulation is something that we can dream of. Democratic governments are also an invention of technology that has mixed blessings. So we need to look at that, particularly if we delay much longer. So, but the warning is there. I think we already have areas where some applications of AI technology have just escaped into the wild and are marketed aggressively, and then will take a great deal of catch up. In the criminal justice area, for example, face recognition, predictions of parolee risks and other things have been widely used to police officers and courts, even without any kind of institutional system to provide a red team analysis and critical judgments. So we need, I think, to look at an ecosystem for regulation, which is not just let's trust government to do it. We need from the academic world support for people who are going to really analyze worst cases. I can suggest that rather than thinking only about regulation, we may want to consider some other alternatives that are still vague and require much creative thought. I'm interested in the driverless car technology, which right now it is private industry develops the cars and then we're supposed to regulate them. A newer model, I think, is a dual key model in which much of the investment goes along streets and roadways governed with government control of part of the system, so that you can invest in technology block by block and local knowledge of and monitoring systems. And that is partly connected to the new fleets of cars who can cost effectively use that, but it gives the government the power to shut down the system with a kill switch if it starts to snow or there are all sorts of marginal conditions in which there are tensions with the for-profit sector about what it wants to do. So the construction generically of AI systems with a public component that is a part of its essential performance and that has the kill switch for the system still within the public sector domain seems to me to be a promising set of new alternatives to consider, because regulatory bodies are yes and no. It depends. And we have in American democratic politics a phenomenon called regulatory capture, which is one of the unfortunate counter learning strategies that the capitalist system comes up with that slows any kind of process as soon as there's profit incentives. Let me stop there, and I'm delighted to have these conversations. I think it's exactly right, and it's thrilling also to come from a background where we know like food and drug safety and other areas in addition to jet airline safety, where scientists and engineers have the professional ethics and the standing and the leadership to have built some very successful, still imperfect, but very successful models. And I just commend this whole initiative for stepping forward and seeing what we have done that has worked and what the creative options are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very, very insightful. Thank you very much. And indeed, in the mapping of the existing regulations, a highlight should be those successful ones, and I use them as beacons of the work that needs to be done. I want to draw to your attention to the chat. There is a truly exciting session that will take place in New York during the UNCA week, third week of September. All the detailed information out there is a session on finding for trialists for AI at an international level. And there is within that session an introduction by the co-president of USA core, but also announcement of the results of international study on global governance of artificial general intelligence by the international and international and national implications. And then there will be a speech by Jerome Glenn, who is with us today, about the state of the future work, relevant work that he's doing in discussing the essential points of needing Cortales before it is too late to keep AI safe. So there are more sessions with more speeches within this session, and I think it will be super exciting, and we can register to attend either in person if there is still space or online. So it's we do appreciate, Ryan, all this information. And let me say that we are going to gather all the information that is in the chat together with the video and together with a summary of this webinar in order to make it available to you. And then you can communicate this to the whole of your academies. But let me go to the two raised hands that we have. First is Monif Zubi, a member and trustee of the World Academy of Art and Science, a friend who wants to intervene. The floor is yours, Monif.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. Congratulations to WAAS and the InterAcademy Partnership for organizing this important webinar. It's critical that Academies of Sciences really get involved in the discussions and the ideas being introduced concerning AI. I think Academies of Sciences have a critical role in their capacity as advisors of governments on scientific issues to really, first of all, educate decision makers and politicians throughout the world on the value of AI in all its forms as a tool to help achieving soft security or human security, or indeed in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Because if we taxonomize our objectives as in the Sustainable Development Agenda, we would find a tremendous role for AI in achieving, for example, food security, water security, health security, and so on and so forth. Yet at the same time, there are threats associated with the use of AI that need to be explained and talked about to decision makers and politicians. And this is really exactly the role that national and global academies, including my own WAAS, and I see the president of my academy listening very carefully to this. Academies have a tremendous role in reaching out to politicians, to explain and talk about the opportunities afforded by AI in addressing a number of development issues and highlighting the challenges that may arise out of the use of AI, indeed contributing to mitigating such challenges by developing, for example, ethical AI development, inclusive AI policies, regulations concerning data protection, collaborative governance, bias mitigation, and so on and so forth. Secondly, I think it'll be worthwhile if the IAP would consider forming a working group made up of a number of interested academies to really develop a global template of best practices that can be proposed by academies of sciences, that is, by academies, that can be proposed to decision makers. I think that's an important step forward in terms of ensuring that this new, very powerful tool is used to make the world safer, more prosperous, and more peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, we need a working group focused on gathering practices, but also what Jerome suggested, mapping what is already there is so crucial to know where you are. So we definitely have to do this. But let me go to Jada Landing, who has provided us with many interesting comments today. The floor is yours. And the plan is that after Jada, I'm going to ask Rania from the InterAcademy Partnership and Gary from the World Academy of Art and Science to close this session with their concluding remarks. So it's gonna, we are looking at a closing at 4:45. And you should know that I've been given the option of extending the webinar if there is interest from people to talk a bit longer. So Jada, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon from the Gambia. I am Landin Jata. I work with the university and also with the Ministry of Health in the Gambia government, central government. I lecture intelligence systems at the university 400 levels. So I see the significance of AI and the research to enhance research in the university education. In terms of data analysis, literature reviews, predictive modeling, and also there are very important issues that has to be addressed in terms of ethics and privacy is concerned, which has to deal with data privacy, bias mitigations, and transparency and accountability when it comes to algorithm transparencies. Yes, and also human oversight. The people who should deal with it has to be qualified individuals that has to work on use the AI. Not everybody jump into use it. They have to be qualified at a certain level to use the AI in certain level, and also funding and resources that also should be considered. Yes, those are my inputs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we hope that you will be bringing the African experience in our working group. So I'm really delighted that you are here. Does anybody else from other academies want to intervene? I also have a very interesting comment in the chat, international by Germana Foskale. International cooperation among national academies for good governance of AI is fundamental, as well as concentrating on the positive social impact of AI and memory rather than intelligence. Here is an interesting link I would like to share. Indeed, the social impact of how we use and manage and regulate the AI is a crucial parameter in all that we want to discuss. And of course, memory, the information gathering is very important. Information is valuable for all of our human advancement. And indeed, AI allows us to gather all this information and then intelligently use this memory, this information for the advancement of social welfare. And this is exactly what we need to regulate, how we use this information and how we control the using this information to make sure it's safe for human security. Another initiative that the Academy of Arts and Sciences is engaging, the Human Security Initiative, how we make sure that all different aspects of human security are embedded in our policies and in our priorities, and also help the implementation of UN Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. Given that I see no additional hands, I will ask Urania Rania from the InterAcademy Partnership to give us some brief concluding remarks, and thank her deeply for supporting this webinar. Rania, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Phoebe. And it's my turn to thank you and your colleagues from the World Academy of Art and Science for putting such a terrific program today. And of course, I want to thank my colleague Moses Ogutu, who did all the behind the scenes work. And he will continue to be doing that for the InterAcademy Partnership as he manages the webinar series. I thought the remarks, presentations, comments were absolutely terrific. I caught the first 10-15 minutes as I was commuting, and the clarity of your comments, Phoebe and Gary, your introductory remarks were absolutely remarkable. I think we all come out of this webinar with some kind of take-home messages. To me, at least, this need to collaborate on mapping the landscape. Is very important and a pretty challenging task, as it's a very fast evolving landscape. So I'm not sure how you can capture it in one moment. Susan, on your comments on regional and engaging with regional and intergovernmental structures as well as academies, I thought that was absolutely a very good point. Academies can be part of it, but we need the partnership of these other entities. And everything on the chat box, some is new to me, some is thoughts that I had not had the time to collect them and definitely not convey them as clear. So again, Phoebe, Gary, to all the panelists and organizers, thank you very much for this interesting webinar. I think I can speak on behalf of IAP that we would be more than interested in having a part B of this discussion, whether it's this setup or Phoebe, you already started shaping this working group. We are open to suggestions how to move forward. So I pass the baton to Gary, I think, to make a bit more technical comments and then close the webinar. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Well,
Gary, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to thank IAP and very much, and all the panelists and the participants and the questions that have been raised. I also make a quick apology. This morning at 5 a.m. I got Lloyd's message, and there was some sequels to it, and I posted in the chat. Some of you may have seen it and already checked on it. I was trying to make his chat available, and I realized afterwards that actually what you got was a different chat that I did with Claude after reading Lloyd's, which is directly related to my presentation, but wasn't related to the question that the panel asked. And I've just sent another message saying that I hope we can circulate the original message from Claude on this because it's really useful and practical. But I'm going to mention to those who have clicked on this one that we in the Academy have been focusing on a project for a long time on the global social challenges that we're undergoing, the turmoil we're undergoing, and we just finished 4 days of online conferencing in May and June, including special sessions on the issue of what's going on in the world today. And we had some really wonderful people speaking about it. And so after reading Claude's response to Lloyd, I asked the same question that I've been asking in our General Assembly meetings to Claude. And I thought I got the best message, the best answer to a very complex question, in spite of the fact we've spent hours and hours in our debate about it. And I take it in the sense that the capacity to look beyond the disciplines or beyond the barriers of the disciplines, I think Claude really demonstrated to me this morning the power of doing what I briefly mentioned. So I wasn't intending to circulate it at all, but those of you who are interested, you can see how it answered that question, and we'll get you the answer to the one that Lloyd answered. Just briefly, if I have a couple of minutes, Phoebe, if that's permissible. One of the questions you asked is, what can we do? And one of the things the Academy has decided to do, we've launched a research project that hasn't even been announced publicly in the Academy yet, because it's really just started. But we did a survey of graduate students in different professional schools to find out how much they're using AI and with what results, and found out, I'm talking about top schools and top students, and to a very large extent, they still don't know how to use it. And so I mentioned, I think a practical thing is, Lloyd's question to AI showed that he really knows how to prompt AI and I think, so one of the things we're doing is we're working on a training program that would be accessible to research institutes, to academies, but also to students at all ages from postgrad down into the grade schools, because we feel there is such a potential for it. And I think that's one of the things I don't think we should take for granted, that our very senior scientists have the specialized training that's needed to really take maximum advantage of this. And it would be, anybody can get an answer. We can publish it, put anything in, and we'll get an answer. But to get the real potential that AI has, it really does require training and skill. And I think we should be providing that to all our scientists in all disciplines, as well as all our faculty in all disciplines, because it can be of immense value for educators at all levels. They can accelerate. We're doing an experiment on that now for a new course in business leadership and technology leadership. And we used AI to take top institutions in US, in Europe, and in India, where I'm based, and to analyze for the same course what material they're covering on it. And we got something that was really, really interesting, a synthesis. And what that would have been months and months of effort for a researcher was done very quickly. So I think that would be one of the recommendations, in addition to those very useful ones that have been mentioned until now. And Phoebe, if I don't know if it's fair for me to put this back to you, but I really would like to hear from you for a minute, if we could, because the work that you're doing, and you've talked about all of us, but the work that you're doing is at the highest level of trying to address global social challenges related to the SDGs, related to all of the full gamut of those, and through large number of organizations working together, meeting together. You've listed, some of them are listed behind you. And I'd like to know, you are an academy. And I'd love to know, what's your experience? What's the experience in the teams that you're working with? And how useful has that been for you?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the concluding remarks. Thank you for the way forward, both Rania and Gary. Indeed, for me, in the work that I do, I see two very urgent needs. The one is what we identified as a special theme for the working group that we are going to form under this InterAcademy partnership to identify what is there in terms of regulation. So in each and every country, what is there are the different forms of AI. This is very important. Then the other thing that is very important is to understand the lack of skill and knowledge that exists at all levels of education. And I also see a lovely comment from Iola Fisher in our chat, which identifies the lack of knowledge and skill for parents to handle the way their parenting manages AI use from their children. That's a very crucial issue as well, because it showcases how early we need to start with regards to our education and upskilling and reskilling with focus on use of AI. So for me, it is crucial to know where we are in terms of regulation, to know where we are in terms of technological advancement and its pace at the different sectors of the economy and society with regards to AI, and then identify the needed skills, the lack of skills and knowledge in the labor force, but also before entering the labor force at our different educational grades in using AI, understanding AI. So identify the most urgent investments with regards to AI. Investment in education, upskilling and reskilling of the current force, labor force, but also educating the young. Investment in identifying what are the critical technologies and how they are used in the different sectors of the economy, and then identify how we regulate. When we have these three levels, then we can have a holistic picture of how we allocate the resources in order to make sure that AI and both the general AI, which seems much more difficult to manage, how we should allocate resources at the global, the international, the national, and the local level in order to navigate safely its use and advancement. So there is a lot of work to be done on clarifying the landscape. And in thanking you for being here, I want to restate that we are going to make available the video. We're going to make available the information in the chat, and we are going to put our heads together with the InterAcademy Partnership Committee of providing capacity, because I am representing the World Academy of Art and Science in this committee of the InterAcademy Partnership. We are going to identify a structure and a call for bringing in resources from other academies. And at this stage, I mean resources in terms of human intellect, intellectual leadership, in order to structure an initiative for mapping all that needs to be mapped, in order to use this as the background for a science-driven regulation and education and upskilling and reskilling with regards to the use of AI. In closing, let me use what Lloyd has shared to us. Bob Francis gave a powerful presentation, Lloyd said, to a recent summit of the world leaders regarding AI and the intelligence to support and call for the human spirit. AI should someday soon recommend supporting the best of human nature and the golden rule. Spiritual intelligence is a deeper challenge to discern and bring forth leading edge questions. So because I do agree that we've been educated out of our spirituality, and I think spirituality adds to science, and it does not function the other way around. I think it is important to have the human spirit and our AI supporting the best of human nature. And this, of course, connects to the ethical codes and regulations that need to be present when we are dealing with such powerful technologies. I want to thank you all, deeply thank you for engaging in this conversation. And I promise you all that we are going to get back to you in order to initiate this initiative on what we can do in order to make AI a useful component of our advancement, something that will truly support human welfare in the most ethical and equitable way possible. Thank you very much all.